Hello there, I am Delta Dynamite, and today I am here to talk about Crysis 3. Obviously the game in the background is not Crysis 3, it is the original Crysis. There are two reasons why I'm playing the original Crysis rather than Crysis 2. The first reason is that if you pre-order Crysis 3, you will get Crysis 1 for free. So you're seeing a bit of what you will get with Crysis 3 if you pre-order it now. And also because the game that I want Crysis 3 to be is more similar to Crysis 1 than Crysis 2. Because I see Crysis 1 as being a much better game than Crysis 2. Because Crysis 2 is extremely linear. It had lots of... well, I didn't really like the way the suit worked, although it did improve it. Especially for consoles, it made it a lot easier, the way that they made the suit work. But on PC, really, I didn't think it worked that much better. But that's down to opinion. But anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Crysis 3 Alpha. Now, if you didn't know, the Crysis 3 Alpha was up for about a week and a bit, so I've been playing it through then. It came with one map and one game mode, which, fair enough, it is an alpha. You're allowed to do that if you really want to. But the map that we got was very small, so I understand that that's the way that they want to go with Crysis 3. You know, it's about having a small environment with fast-paced action and people dying and spawning a lot. You know, and lots of things going on in a very compact area, so it's more action-packed. But then again, I would still like to see some bigger environments brought into Crysis, because Crysis 1 worked amazingly with large environments. Sniping in this game, sneaking around people, using the environment, using big open spaces was very good. So why not bring that into the multiplayer on Crysis 3? I think I'd like it. Maybe they are planning to do it. You never know, but they didn't with Crysis 2. It's something that I'd like to see. So I've put that in there. In terms of the map on Crysis 3 that we got, it was a very good map. And a way that they made it very interesting was by adding areas in the map that you could interact with. So there were helicopters around the map that you might have seen. What you might not have noticed is that if you went up to that helicopter, you could actually activate its rotor blades, and they would spin round and chop up any people that walked into them. That's pretty good. That's interesting. That's something that you can interact with the map with and change how the game works because of it. You can cut off a certain area by activating the chopper blades there. Nobody can stand there anymore. There are also areas where you can break a wall, so you can like kick through a wall or punch through a wall, opening up a new corridor, coming out behind people, getting around behind enemies. It's a really good system. That works well as well. And also there was the alien weapon spawns around the map. These are a good idea, but I felt like there were a few too many alien weapon spawns around the map. Like, I think maybe one or two, and maybe they should flying in drop pods as well, because as it is, they just spawn around the map kind of like Halo style. Like you walk around and pick up your alien weapons and then you're badass. They are balanced quite well. They aren't a lot better than, you know, just your normal weapons, but I don't know. People do seem to just pick them up and run around spraying with them a lot. So maybe put a few less on the map, maybe tone them down a little bit. Down to them, that's a personal feeling on my behalf. It is a good idea to put them in them. It's interesting, you know, you can go pick them up, it's quite good. The map does work, as I said, in a small area because you get very fast-paced action. And it even works if somebody gets this huge robot thing, if they get 7 dog tags off their enemies and call it in or whatever. And that's still okay, it still seems to work because there are lots of indoor and outdoor areas even in this small combined space. So it did work, I liked it. There we go. As I said again, the game did have a very good pacing, and I think this is also down to how Crysis works. Because you have your suit armor modes, and because you can get around quite well, although that's an issue that I'll talk about later, you know, it flows well, the gunplay feels nice, yada yada. That's just generally what you would expect from an FPS nowadays, and you get it, so that's good. In terms of graphic quality, the game does look great. I'm not going to go saying, oh, it looks horrible, but I did have to put it on medium. And you might be like, whoa, medium, oh no. But I'm running a GTX 560 Ti, which has been overclocked to just about where it'll go, and a quad-core Intel i5 processor. So I don't usually expect to have to put games on medium. I mean, sometimes I do, just because I like to have a nice solid frame rate, and because I like to, you know, be competitive. But I expect to be able to run the game without lagging around crazily on high, which I did on the Crysis 3 Alpha. Granted, it is an alpha. Maybe they just haven't worked on getting it sorted out for all systems yet. and that's okay. It's not optimized right, obviously, but something that I really would like in Crysis is to be able to put my game on high, just because, you know, Crysis is a game about graphics quality. It's part of the experience, it's how nice it looks. So while the game did look okay, the colours were a little bit dark and dingy. Like this Crysis 1 is very bright, and that's because you're in a bright environment, and obviously Crysis 3 is set in a dark environment, but I don't think I'd have made it quite as dingy as they have done. But that is easily fixed, but hopefully they will, not just leave it. Now, if I start talking about the armor abilities, this is something that's interesting because this is based on opinion. I prefer how Crysis 1 works in terms of your armor abilities to Crysis 2 and 3, because you are given more control. In Crysis 1, as you can see when I flip it open every now and then, you have lots of different modes. There's speed mode, which makes you move faster. There is armor mode, in which you have increased armor and bullets just bounce off you. There is a strength mode, which I'm currently in now, which allows you to jump higher and it steadies your aiming, so you get less recoil. And then there's cloak mode, in which you're cloaked and you can't fire your weapon without draining your entire energy bar. And that's how it worked. In Crysis 2, it's a lot simpler, and in Crysis 3, it's the same. You press one button to go into cloak mode. You can cloak and uncloak whenever you want. And you press another button to go into armor mode. And you can armor in and armor out whenever you want. And that's it. Strength mode is pretty much activated all the time, because if you hold space to jump, you'll jump higher, and, well, in Crysis 2, if you sprinted and held double tap sprint, you would go into what they called power sprint, which was like being in speed mode in Crysis 1. You would sprint faster. In Crysis 3, this has been taken out, and I don't actually know why it's been taken out, because it worked well in Crysis 2. I have a feeling that it's to do with pacing, and that they didn't want people to be able to just sprint up to their enemies and punch them. That's what I assume it's for. But I don't think it's a good idea, because it slows the game down. You can't get to where you want to get fast enough sometimes. And I think in the original Crysis, speed mode is something that worked really well, because you became more vulnerable to being shot. And I know it's awkward for them, because then they'd have to put in a third keyboard command to go into speed mode, but it's something that I think would really work if they brought it back. They're not going to, but it would. So hopefully they'll bring back power sprint, because it's at least a happy medium. You've nearly got speed mode, but not quite. So that's my general problem with the way that Crysis 3's suit modes works is a bit of an interesting issue. Lots of people prefer the Crysis 2 thing because it works better, and obviously it's consoleized. It's done like that so it works on consoles, because on consoles, working with a radial selection tool quickly is pretty much impossible. You can't do it fast enough for it to work well, whereas on PC it's fine. So that's why they've done it. There's no two questions about it. That's why it's there, and that's not going to change. It's something that we're just going to have to deal with. But as long as they get it good and close to what it should be, so that it works on PC, so that it feels right, because at the moment I feel like my character is sluggish on the Crysis 3 Alpha. I feel too slow. I feel like if I try to climb over something, I always jump really high, because I never think about not holding it down to jump with power jump. I jump really high, but hardly any distance forwards as well. So just things like that need tweaking to make it feel a bit more fluid. So it's not quite as fluid as I would like it to be. A few other problems in terms of balancing that the Alpha had, these are easily fixed of course, but the LMG, oh dear, the LMG was extremely overpowered. And I don't mean, well, it wasn't overpowered, but it had practically no recoil. So what the LMG should be is a version of the assault rifle which has a slower fire rate, higher damage, and really god-awful recoil and spread. It should fire everywhere. At the moment, it's like the assault rifle, but it's more powerful. That's literally what it is. So you end up being on servers where people only ever use sniper rifles, shotguns, and LMGs, because the assault rifle is not as good as the LMG. That's something that needs fixing. If people want to use an LMG, they can, but if they want to use an assault rifle, they shouldn't feel like the people with the LMGs have got a huge advantage over them, which is what it feels like at the moment to me. I felt like when I used an assault rifle, if I came up against the guy with an LMG, I was pretty screwed. Another problem that I actually forgot until just now is that with the armor mode system, there is a strange thing going on where if you get shot with certain classes, you have to have the right class on, but if you get shot, you automatically go into armor mode. You go literally straight from whatever you're in into armor mode when you get shot. Now that's silly. That's not a good idea, because that means that people can stop thinking about armor mode. It stops being a mode and starts being you have more health all the time. Which is completely wrong, because they can just stop thinking about it. That means that players can run around and do whatever they want, and if they get shot, oh, they'll just go into armor mode and they'll be fine, because they could take more damage than the other player can then. They should have to think about going into armor mode. Another problem linked to this is that in Crysis 1, as you can see as it's recharging on the bottom right there, you have one energy bar and everything depletes it. If you go into cloak, it depletes it. If you shoot while you're in strength mode, it depletes it. If you get shot while you're in armor mode, it depletes it. That's how it works. In Crysis 3, you have a energy bar for your cloak and an energy bar for your armor mode. So you can run around in cloak, and as soon as your cloak runs out, be in armor mode and have full energy for armor mode. So people can basically cloak up, run straight into you, go into armor mode and have as much health, well, as much or more health than you have if you're not in armor mode, or even if you're in armor mode. Whereas they should be at a disadvantage. If they've cloaked and run up to you, they shouldn't be able to instantly go into armor mode. They need to bring back having one energy bar rather than two. Having two energy bars just defeats the object of an energy bar, basically, because you can cloak, then armor, then cloak, then armor, then cloak, then armor, while never running out of energy. So that's something that I think is a bit of a problem. Then that's basically all my problems. It did run very well. Obviously, a lot of the things I've mentioned, because it's in alpha, are things that are easily fixed and things that they will hopefully notice now. There is a few other things, though. While I say that I did like the map, it's very small, and that's working. But it's the same as in Crysis 2. There are lots of very small maps, and I'd like to see them introduce some larger maps, just so we could try them. I would like to have some larger maps. And also, we were given this single game mode, which was basically point capturing. A rocket pod, an alien rocket pod would fly in from the sky and land in the map, and then you would have to capture it. So basically it's like capturing a point. That's all it is. And I do that in every FPS. I do it all the time. So why not? They'd just been advertising this big new hunter game mode. You've probably seen it, the hunter game mode. It looks really awesome. It looks like the hidden but in Crysis, which is really cool and a really good idea. But why didn't they introduce that with the alpha? They advertised it, then they released the alpha, and then there was no hunter game mode. What? The hunter game mode looks really interesting. It looks really good. Hopefully they'll bring it in with the beta. I would like to see that, because it needs testing. It needs to be tested by actual gamers, and they need to actually go, you know what, it's a good idea, but this. Because it will probably have problems. The compound bow, for one, looks to me like it might be a bit overpowered if you can just fire it while you're cloaked. I mean, obviously you have limited ammo, but in a multiplayer environment, that doesn't really matter, because I'm assuming they'll give you enough ammo to kill everybody. So, it does look really interesting, but I am kind of disappointed that I was only given the one game mode, the one map. It's alpha, it's okay. But I would like to see more interesting game modes like Hunter added into Crysis 3, because if I'm going to stay on the multiplayer for a long time, I know that I'm going to need more interesting game modes than what's just average to an FPS, what you get anyway, what you expect. So that's basically everything that I have to say about the Crysis 3 alpha. I did definitely enjoy it. I'm looking forward to the beta, and I'm very likely going to buy the game. Along with that, if I do pre-order Crysis 3, I will be given a free copy of Crysis 1. So, seeing as though I already own Crysis 1, there may well be a digital download to Crysis 1 becoming available on this channel to our subscribers in some sort of giveaway contest. So I am looking to do that. We'll see what happens though. You never know. So, this has been Delta Dynamite talking about the Crysis 3 Alpha with some Crysis 1 in the background. I have successfully killed everyone in this village after really stupidly setting off the alarm. But, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.